Welcome to a special edition of Black Opinions Matter. My name is Amin Elhassan. I'm joined by Big Waz, and today we have a very special panel. We've got really special guests to talk about some important things. It was so important we couldn't even hold it till the regular episode. We said we're going to drop an extra episode this week. So joining us from the Houston Texans, wide receiver, 7-year pro, Kenny Stills. Former NBA assistant coach. He's been with the Rockets. He's been with the Suns. He's been with the Pelicans. He's been with a bunch more teams, I'm sure. Irv Roland. And from Yahoo Sports, we've got Vincent Goodwill. But I'm going to call him Vinny for the rest of the show because that's my guy. I'm really excited about this because Irv and Kenny, you guys were among the people who went to Louisville, Kentucky, protested at the house of Attorney General Daniel Cameron about the Breonna Taylor murder by police officers, were arrested, were booked, and were charged with trying to intimidate an investigation. I believe was a felony charge they hit y'all with. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different things on this pod today, but I want to start with that experience because, I think the whole country a lot of people were out in the streets marching and protesting, but it takes another level of commitment, I feel, to go into a situation knowing we're about to get arrested. I remember you sent me a picture of your mugshot, and I was like, hold up, man. Were you all out there? And he said, yeah. And so, Irv, let me start with you. What was the influence for you guys to make that trip out there?
Yeah, so Until Freedom, Tamika Mallory and their group, Kenny and I try to support them as much as possible. And, the thing with us is like, that could have been our sister. That could have been, our girlfriend, our mother, like whatever. And so we just always look at it like, if we got time, we got the means to pull up, we're going to pull up. And, everybody shows their support in different ways. Some people, is donate money. Some people, it's some hashtags and stuff like that. But we want to be front and center. So, that's kind of why we do what we do, man. We gotta be seen. We gotta be up front.
Yeah, Kenny, for you, right now you're actually with the team getting ready for the season. But was there any part of you that felt like, is this going to be frowned upon by my employer? Is this going to make things hard for me politically within my own job?
Not at all. Not at all. One of my heroes is John Lewis, and so I've done a lot of reading and watching his work, and so I've understood this concept of good trouble and understand we had to do what we had to do to bring more light to this case and more attention to this case, and I understand the position that I'm in as an athlete, as an active football player, going there and getting arrested and knowing how much attention that can bring to a case and how much we can stir up by being there and getting arrested. And so for us, we had been there in the week or a couple weeks before, and we went to the Capitol, and everything was really peaceful. And I kind of went there expecting for things to turn up a little bit more so that we could, make some movement and some traction on this case. And it didn't happen that way. So when they hit us up saying we're going to go back in a couple weeks, we knew we had to pull up and do something about it.
I want to ask you guys specifically about getting arrested. Can either one of you, Irv or Kenny, can you walk us through what exactly happened, what they said you were arrested for, and sort of the process of being arrested for protesting? Because I'm not going to front. I don't personally know anybody that's actually gotten the cuffs thrown on them and got taken to the bookings from protesting. So can you walk us through that process?
Yeah. Kenny, you want to take it? You want me to get it?
Yeah. So, we showed up, and Until Freedom didn't really tell us much of the plan. They couldn't tell us much of the plan because a lot of they put out basically a flyer, and so you could sign up based off of an email. So they didn't want to give us too much information because you never know who's on the inside and who's there. So for us, we didn't know what we were doing, but we ended up marching in the neighborhood, and in the neighborhood we were in, it ended up being by Daniel Cameron's house. And so we were in the street at first. And we got to a point where we were going to meet up with the police. And so they had told us straight up that they were going to arrest us. And we were in the street at that time, and they told us, okay, well, if you guys, regardless, we're going to arrest you. So what do you want to do? And so, we figured it'd be a better plan to go and sit on his property and get arrested there. And so that's what ended up happening. They arrested us one by one in the heat, threw us in a paddy wagon and put the cuffs on us and then took us down to the jail. I don't know if Irv wants to get into it more.
Yeah, so they had us zip tied, 87 of us, and the way we moved, we had more women than men, so we were outnumbered women to men 3-1, and then it was more white women than black men there. So when we march, our leaders, as soon as we get confronted by the cops, they say, "Yo, allies, get to the front." That way, as soon as the cops approach us, you got the white people on the outside. It makes us look less threatening. So it's like, what are you gonna do? Beat up these white women to get to us, type thing. So
potentially,
yeah, no, for sure, it could happen. And so we all, we got into the yard. All the white people, the allies, took the perimeter. They came and got us, like you said, one by one, and they kind of prolonged the process on purpose. Put us in the paddy wagon. The thing about the paddy wagon is the way the van's set up. There's 4 people on one side, then there's a partition you can't see on the other side, and then there's 4 people on the other side. So 8 people in the back of the van. Thing that kind of messed it up was obviously because of COVID, we had our mask on, and the cops could have been a lot worse in that scenario. They allowed some of us to take our masks down a little bit because a few of the guys were claustrophobic. I know Kenny, they threw Kenny, he was in the opposite van of me, but they tried to throw him in first, and that wasn't gonna work for him.
No, because they got me behind my back, right? And I'm not like the strongest, biggest guy, but my hands behind my back with my upper body, like my shoulders and my chest, I can't be like that. Right. So they try to throw me in the very front of the paddy wagon, and I'm with my hands behind my back, and it's tight up in there, so I got my knees to my chest and my shoulders back, and so a couple guys panicked, and I panicked. I'm like, "Sir, I can't be back here. I'll pass out." And luckily, they were cool enough to let me sit towards the door, but. The situation could have gotten a lot worse quick.
But what did the record say? Like when they book you at the precinct or whatever at the jail, what does it say that you did to get this?
So once we got to the jail, we had they cut the zip ties off of us, and then they put us on the chain gang thing. So we were all chained up. All the men were together in chains. All the women were together in chains. So we got arrested maybe around 6 o'clock. We sat down underneath the jail in the chains for about 5 hours. It was about 11 o'clock before we got processed and booked. And so it got to the point where we were sitting back like, hold up, y'all didn't even read us our rights. Y'all ain't tell us what we're being charged with. So the women start spazzing out like, officer, because, you mainly white women and stuff down there, they teachers, and they like, hold up now. Like, right. Tell us what we're being charged with. And they never told us anything. A lot of us didn't find out what our actual charges were until we went upstairs, got put in the cell, and we were able to make our phone call. I called my dad, and my mom had looked on the internet and was like, "Oh yeah, I saw y'all got charged with a felony." But they didn't tell us none of that.
That's incredible. It is. I mean, it's not shocking. That's the hard part about all this. None of it surprises me, but it still kind of makes you say, really? Just the simple right of due process. All right, you're going to have trumped up charges. You're going to arrest these people who are peacefully protesting. You're going to do all that. You can't even tell me what the charge is. We can't even get this expedited and figured out and put me in a cell. We got to be held in these kind of conditions. It's truly shameful. Now, just to be clear, the charges were dropped a couple of weeks ago, correct?
Just the felony.
Yeah, just the felony.
We still have 2 misdemeanors for trespassing and disorderly conduct.
But there was nobody who was disorderly, right? You guys were peaceful.
There was a couple people that were loud. Mm-hmm. Some of the people that were loud weren't even the people that actually got arrested. So we were on the line, and it was 87 of us. Originally, there was closer to about 120, 130 that were with us, but some people couldn't get arrested, weren't willing to get arrested, which is, fine, but they stood on the outside. We had what we call legal observers that had their phones out. A lot of people on Instagram Live, Facebook Live. That way, if the cops tried to harm us, it was all being recorded. And so they were all on the outside and they were going at the cops. There were some black cops. They were yelling at them, calling them sellouts and all this stuff. And, I think that's kind of what routed up a little bit, but they weren't the people that actually got arrested.
Did the cops get aggressive at all? Or was it kind of, were they calm at least when they were doing all this? Kenny?
No, they were calm for the most part. I mean, you could tell some of them had, that attitude, like, what are we doing here? Why are y'all wasting our time? I mean, I think things could have popped off if that's what our intentions would have been. But we had a little training session beforehand, and we knew what our strategy was, and that's nonviolence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Irv, you told me about that last time we talked about you got. I mean, this was very organized, where you guys were having training sessions, like Kenny just mentioned. Can you just explain a little bit of that? What that entailed?
Yeah, so obviously Kenny has been front and center, trying to use his voice and his platform for years now. Me not being with a team, I got all the time in the world because I ain't in the bubble or whatever. So I got all the time in the world. So when he said the first time we were going, that was the first time I was able to meet, everybody from Untitled Freedom. And I love the way they operate because they have a plan, they have a strategy. They think things out before they just pull up and, wild out. And so they told us we were having training, like he said, just like with the Panthers, Dr. King or whatever, you don't know who's amongst who. So we had our training session. They were like, look, trust us. We're going to take care of everybody, but this is what we're doing. We can only tell you so much until we get there. And so we had I think it was about 130 people, maybe 25 from Kentucky. And then everybody else had flown in or drove in from other places. And so they kind of told us like what it's going to be like when we get arrested, who to call. We had Sharpies. We wrote down our lawyer's number on our arms because a lot of us didn't want to obviously carry our cell phones and stuff like that. So, we were very prepared. That lasted a little over an hour or something like that. Then we got in vans and then we, drove to the meeting place when we started to march.
Irv, it's Vincent Goodwill. I'm just curious because I think you mentioned the racial makeup of the people protesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did that make you feel like, considering the issue? We know it's the South and everything else, but it was a percentage of Black people, not majority Black people. You know what I'm saying? Is it something where you felt like there should have been more of a Black presence in that space?
Yeah. So, Kenny and I, we talk about this almost daily, this subject. I think I talked to A about it too. I'm always trying to figure out how to articulate myself because I never want to turn other people off from what we're doing. I never want to make it seem like, oh, we think we're tougher and we whatever, we more, with the cause than y'all are. I never want to make it seem like that. So I'm always trying to figure out how to get my words across properly. But it is kind of disheartening sometimes because not a lot of men, Black men, are present. And one, we have to take care of our women. We got to take care of our men, and that's what we're fighting for right now. Anyway, we gotta look after our women. But two, it's like, why don't enough of us care? And like I said, I can go post a black square on my Instagram page and the little fist emoji, and that's cool, and get back to my day. But like Kenny said, John Lewis, somebody we look up to. Obviously, Dr. King, Malcolm X, like all these figures throughout history. Fred Hampton, somebody I idolize. So it's like, it's cool. Like, I grew up, I wanted to be like Mike. I wanted to be like all these guys that we watched, because I'm a basketball guy or whatever. But at the end of the day, this subject means more to me than anything else. So it's just troublesome that it doesn't mean enough to enough people that look like us. Yeah.
And we really just try to figure out ways to encourage our brothers to be there. It's not you don't want to talk down to anybody, but it is. It's frustrating, to know that we all have family members, brothers, sisters, aunts, grandmas, whatever that may be, and we fail to show up for our women. And you see it in history. You see it in the civil rights movement in the 60s. You see it where we failed to show up as men for our women, and we've got to do a better job. And so I mean, it's frustrating, but it's a start. It's we're like in the midst of the movement right now. And so, you know, one of the things we talked about inside the cell with our 22 men that were in our cell was that, hey, if we can all go back to our communities or recruit men within our umbrella and our reach, and we can come back with 10 more or 100 more or 1,000 more, like we're the leaders within our group. The 22 men that were in that cell are the leaders within our community. So it's on us to go back and recruit other men for the next time when we got to go back and do this thing again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kenny and Irv, I want to ask you guys about that because, you know, part of it is that you guys are already there. You guys are already, as far as your mentality is concerned, you're already about this. And I'd be very curious to know from both of you guys, what was your journey to finding your voice in this way, right? Like for Kenny, for example, everybody knows you as one of the NFL guys who is willing to speak his mind, right? And let's face it, the perception, whether it's reality or not, there's a perception that football players are more cowed, are more worried about their job security and things of that nature when it comes to speaking up to some of these issues. But Kenny, you've been somebody who's been doing it for a minute now. In fact, it's part of your persona publicly, right? How were you able to find your voice that way?
Honestly, I think it's just part of who I am and who I've been as a young person. I've always kind of been like, not like a rebel, but just like somebody that just is like, all right, this is how I feel. I'm not afraid to speak my mind about it. I think it kind of comes from my pops, honestly, and my mom. But the confidence in that, I think, is just knowing like I'm intelligent and I know that I can do things outside of sport. You know, if football were to not be my thing anymore, I trust in God and God's plan for me. So when I took a knee in 2016, it was a contract year for me. And I thought about it that way. Like if I'm doing something like that's in alignment with my purpose and who I am and God's purpose, then like something else will fall in line for me, regardless of if football or whatever falls through. Like something else is going to happen because that's just how life works. And I really fully like believe that and trust in that. And so if I got something on my heart, like I try to do my best to not speak with emotion, but really just really think and process everything that's going through my mind and my heart, and then I put it out there.
That's a powerful truth. Irv?
Yeah, so, you know, working for NBA teams, man, I had to have this talk with, you know, one of my former players or whatever. Like if you scroll through my gram, we walk into an NBA arena, I got on the team sweats with a fist on my T-shirt, you know what I mean, with a Stay Woke hat. Like I was always, you know, trying to let people know like what I stand for, you know what I mean? Because for me, I don't do interviews, you know what I'm saying? I'm not the guy that all the cameras are in front of after the game and stuff like that. So I want people to know in that sense. And so, like I said, growing up, man, I was in love with the Panthers, man. I can't wait for this movie to come out, Fred Hampton's story. I can't wait. But I was always in love with those guys. And, you know, now, like I said, that I don't work for a team and we're in the mix of everything because of me and Kenny's relationship and stuff like that. I got time. I'm going to be there. And so, you know, like I said, I always wanted to be like Mike, but I want to be like John Lewis more than I want to be like Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Because my whole goal is to make sure that, you know, my future kids, my grandkids grow up in a better society. They're not having to grow up around this gang member police culture that we have. You know, I just want to help, you know, be a part of change.
I got a question for both of you guys. It's kind of related to that. And it's about the reaction from your peers in your respective sports. Kenny, whether it was teammates or coaches or anyone like that, or other coaches, players that you may have coached or worked with in the past. What was the reaction when they found out you guys were going? What was the reaction when they found out that you guys were arrested? Was it positive? Was it negative? I mean, I'm trying to get a picture of kind of how it was received. Kenny, let's start with you. Or Irv, let's start with
you. Yeah. So for me, man, it almost killed me for like a week. So we got out, and obviously, you know, Kenny, people knew Kenny was in Portia, Yandy, YB, and Corday, all those guys. So it started to get some steam. So people slowly started to find out, oh, Irv was with Kenny too, right? So a couple former players hit me up like, yo, you good, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, man, just out of curiosity, I asked one of the players, I said, man, what was the energy, when people say, oh, well, Irv was one of the ones that got locked up too. And so somebody said something to the effect, oh, well, everybody wants to be an activist now.
Oh,
right?
God.
And so that crushed me because it's like, I train, Kenny's heard me say this too, I train the best players in the world. Like, A knows, like, I don't, you know what I mean? I work with everybody in the league, but like, I just worked out an all-star starter on Friday, and he had a cameraman there. I got a whole roll of pictures in my phone. I ain't posted once. And you guys know how, my industry works. Guys get on the court with a guy one time.
Oh, yeah.
And they posting everything.
Oh, yeah.
I don't post pictures of my workouts. I don't post who I'm with. And that's what
what's crazy, Irv, it's August now, and this is usually prime sizzle reel season.
For 4 months, I had 10 NBA guys working out in Houston. I didn't post nothing but happy birthday to PJ Tucker, right? So I don't do my regular job, which is way cooler to the masses. I don't do that for clout. Like, why would y'all think we doing this for show? Like, the cops could have did whatever they wanted to us. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just disheartening that I don't need a pat on the back. I don't need none of that, but to know that that's their energy. I read $40 Million Slave. I don't know if you guys read it, but in the book, man, he talks about so many things that we struggle with and we talk about with these guys. It's like they become too far removed. And so a lot of people are like, all right, cool, I'm gonna wear the shirt. I'm gonna wear it on my jersey. I'm gonna wear, write something on my shoes. But like, how many of y'all genuinely care? And so, I think for us being in jail, it was one of the most therapeutic things that's happened to me, because sometimes I walk around and I feel like I'm a weirdo because I care so much. Like, dang, am I tripping? Like, do I need to tone it down a little bit? Like, just post something on Facebook, Fist, and then just keep it moving. But being with that group of men, like Kenny said, the 22 white, black, different sexual orientate, everything, like just being with those guys helped me feel like, yo, there's other of us out there,
Kenny, what about you?
Yeah, so I mean, the reaction from people, for the most part, people that know me, people that are tight with me, knew and understood, like, hey, that's what we were going out there to do. And then, the general public, for the most part, was just checking on me, making sure that I was okay, that nothing crazy happened, that the police didn't beat us up or something. But yeah, no, I mean, the reaction of people, like, I didn't, it was interesting to hear, like, to ask some of my friends, like, hey, how much traction, were we getting while this was going down? Was it something that was it like a trending topic? Was it, all over the news? Like, kind of hearing that, because you never know what's happening while you're in it. And so it was interesting kind of just to hear, people talk about the way that it was covered by the news and, the reach that it had. And so, obviously, that's what we were there to do, and just bring more attention to the case. But like Irv was saying, man, I think over this time of COVID and what's been happening with the movement, I think the most like normal that I've ever felt, or I felt during this time, was when I was inside that jail cell with 22 dudes and the women that were across the cell and next to us. The most normal and like at peace, in a sense, that I've been during this COVID season was right there with them men, having that conversation and writing stuff on the window, communicating to the other women. Wow. And hand signaling and mouthing to them to, make sure, hey, look, we're going to be in here for another 10 hours, or we're going to, like, have any of you gotten out? Is everyone okay? Talking to each other through the air ventilators and screaming to each other, making sure everybody's okay. Our group of men sitting down and really peeling back the layers of who we are and how we got involved in the movement and where we're from, and just hearing everybody's story, like that was the highlight of this whole time for me. And like, I'll never forget that moment. If there was a camera inside of there to film that and listen to that conversation, like world changers, life changers, all in those cells.
So I want to ask you guys something and related to that too, right? and this is a fight that I have with people on the internet all the time, like who I called fancy Negroes, right? Like, essentially, they go on the internet, they're using this fancy jargon, they're talking, and they're basically on their high horse talking at people, not to people. And I'm just like, look, if we want to get more people involved, we gotta communicate more effectively. And I mean to like normal people from my neighborhood, right? And I think for what I call normal people, it's like somebody who ain't got 7 degrees, right? Like, and who hasn't been reading James Baldwin out the crib. Like, but they would love to be involved and feel like they're helping. I don't think it's crazy hard to reach those people. I just think people on the internet are just bad at it. But for you guys, because you guys are amongst a lot of prominent people, right? How do you think you do communicate to an athlete who's like a really successful professional athlete? Because let's face it, like, somebody like LeBron or KD just has a lot more in common with the ownership class than he does some school teacher who makes $50K. Like, whether they're black or not, like, their reality is a lot further removed from them. So how do you think you get those kinds of people involved in the struggle, for lack of a better term?
I mean, I think that's a difficult question to answer. In my situation, it was, I chose to I wanted to get involved in, like, I wanted to vote. So 2016, it would have been my first time voting. I wasn't paying attention in college. My parents never talked to me about politics. I didn't have a party. I wasn't a history buff. Like, I wasn't into any of it. And so when 2016 came along, I was like, all right, well, I want to vote. So I had to start educating myself and paying attention to the debates and, picking who I wanted, who I wanted to vote for. And so it was a choice on my end. And then when I started paying attention to what was happening, I started paying attention to current events. And as I started paying attention to current events, I started seeing Black and brown people just being killed by police officers and no justice being served. And so I was like, it really messed me up, like, to be like, damn, all right, this has been happening all this time and nobody's doing anything about it. And so from there, then I started educating myself more, reading books and listening to podcasts and everything. And then I was like, all right, well, I had to do something about it. I had to get involved. And so right now, I think we're at a point where people are a little bit more interested. And, like, I'll say, like, there's guys in the locker room that come and talk to me and ask questions. And so, like, today I had a conversation with one of, our star players about police unions and how, they're really like the gangs of this country, the real mob, and how, they really run things.
What did J.J. Watt say? Nah,
the more we start to just kind of talk and educate and just have those like real basic baseline conversations, I think people start to be like, damn, that's crazy. Like, well, what can I do about it? How do I get involved? And so it's a slow process, man. It's a slow process of just recruiting people one by one and hoping that they educate the people within their umbrella. But it's a choice that has to be made, man. And that's why, like, I've kind of taken it upon myself to try and build this culture of consciousness, this culture of awareness within my friend group and the people that I can come in contact with, because the more we know and the more we're paying attention, I think the more people will want to, stand up and do something about it.
Irv, I'm curious. You mentioned the fact that there's 22 teams in the bubble, and there's going to be a few wind up coming out, as time goes on. But there's 8 teams outside of it. Do you think that there's a unique opportunity for players who are not being as visible because they're not in that atmosphere to do things to draw attention to the case without necessarily social media actually having boots on the ground? Like, is there anything that you feel like you can do to kind of mobilize guys where you are in maybe a basketball sense and a civic sense?
Yeah. So I just got back. I'm in LA now. I just got back from Kentucky on Sunday. I'm going back to Kentucky on Friday. And what I did was I posted some stuff, but I got a lot of relationships with a lot of guys in the league. And if I don't know them personally, I know their teammates. So I hit up as many guys as I knew to come back with me this coming up weekend. We'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
What are those dates?
Well, we're going the 15th and 16th. of August. So we're going to feed 2,000 families on Saturday. We're doing some stuff in the community as far as back to school stuff and things of that nature. Until Freedom, obviously out there protesting, out there trying to get justice. But I think one of the most important things, and Kenny is huge with mental health, the thing with the Louisville community, there's protests every day, right? There's rallies every day, all peaceful for the most part. But, you just think of a kid growing up during this time, right? COVID going on, you can't have regular school, your regular sporting activities, plus all the racial tension going on in your city. It's like, wow, like that's got to be overwhelming for a child, So we're trying to do as much as we can to try to uplift their spirit. So I have a couple NBA guys that are coming with me this week. I'm going to keep blowing guys up, even a couple WNBA girls that aren't in the bubble. And so I'm going to ask them to come, get in the streets with me, feed some families, and then I'm going to do a basketball clinic on Saturday evening. We're inviting some of Breonna Taylor's family, some people from her community, and there's a black college that will be doing it at. So we're going to have some people from that community as well, come meet some basketball players, take some pictures and stuff like that. Because it's like I said, I mean, everybody's way of giving back is different. Everybody is different. So I think just this way of uplifting the community, that's good enough for me,
Right. Especially as a start. And I think, man, you might want to call Kyrie. I don't know if you got his numbers. He sounded like this was something that he wanted to do, or that's what he was saying before. I don't know. Maybe he changed his mind. I don't know.
Yeah, I text Kai Sunday. We have a great relationship.
Oh, nice.
We had a great relationship. I text Steph Curry, Draymond. I hit all those guys, man. We good friends or whatever. But, at the end of the day, man, one of the things me and Kenny talk about is, not focus on our energy on guys that can't or won't pull up. Of course. I mean that it gets tough for me.
The people who are supporting and actually in community with you guys, that's who the focus should always be on. The people who show up, straight up.
I'm light skinned, man. You know what I mean? I get sensitive sometimes. I'm like, hold up, yo. You know what I mean? Like you ain't even respond to my text. You know what I'm saying? But if I said we was having a pool party in Scottsdale, everybody will pull up, I just gotta let it go, man, and focus on guys.
So we can make him skin jokes now. He just opened the skin jokes.
Right.
Hey, listen, I was sitting here like, hey, man, freaking Kenny's a beautiful Negro. He gonna attract some people to the movement now. Come on now. We gotta put a face on it. We got to, man. We gotta win. It don't matter. We gotta use what we got. Exactly.
Right. What's crazy about that is the first time we went to Kentucky, I put on my Twitter, look, like if you want to pull up from all over the country, like I got you. Like I'll pay for your flight, your busing, your housing, your gas money, your rental car, whatever it is. Like however you can get there, I got it. Just hit me up, send me the receipt. I'll cash app you, Venmo, Zelle, whatever you need. And when I look back at the list, I think we had like 25 people come like individually, and then we had brought in another like 25 from Louisiana.
Wow.
But it was mainly women, because like if I look at my Instagram or like the people that like on like the statistics, it's all like girls, and so it is what it is. But shoot, like I'll run with the women of the movement any day, bro. Especially I think that's something that I really really learned from being a part of the protests and being with the 87 is like the women have run this movement from the beginning. And they're going to continue to run this movement. And we got to do a good job of lifting them up, protecting them, following them.
Their heart and their passion is carrying this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's the energy behind this.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears a little bit to a column that Vinny wrote a couple weeks ago. Or actually it was a week ago, right, Vinny?
Yep.
So Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic, he chose not to kneel for the anthem, which I think is fine. That's his prerogative. He chose not to wear a Black Lives Matter shirt. Again, that's fine. That's his prerogative. But when asked afterward why and how he felt about Black Lives Mattering, he gave a very roundabout answer. Vinny, you're a professional journalist who's written on this. Can you describe how Jonathan Isaac answer that question.
How would you describe his response and like your analysis of it? Because I know you did a fantastic job in the piece, but some of the listeners may not have read that piece yet.
Well, I mean, to put it in layman's terms, you know, people who try to use religion or try to use quote unquote God to defend themselves against Black people and Black people's humanity, I'm not really going for that. Like, usually we say, if somebody says something about religion, we back off, right? You say something about God, that's like the ultimate sort of, you know, trump card, lack of a better phrase, right? That's like, that's the big joker on your forehead. And I'm like, no. I don't care if you kneel or don't kneel. Like, it's a performative thing. It's not even like a demonstration. You know what I'm saying? It's not even like an act of defiance anymore. It's just something that you do now. Like, kneeling was something 3 or 4 years ago that really, really meant something. It means something now, but it meant a whole lot more back then. And then, okay, you don't want to wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. All right, cool, whatever. But let me know something besides what he said. He said, well, with my God, we have all sinned and da-da-da-da. And in my book, that sounded like all lives matter. What about China? What about Black on Black crime? And one thing you're not going to do is put God on one side and Black people on the other side, because that's just completely disingenuous. And the people in my mentions, y'all, who were upset with me, Amin, I was called the devil doing the devil's work.
Whoa. Whoa.
And you best believe it wasn't nobody Black saying that.
Yeah, Irv, what was your reaction when that whole
so
thing went down?
you know, my dad's a preacher. My dad's a preacher, and I have a lot of in my circle, a lot of preachers, a lot of pastors, and so I was hot when I first saw that. Myers Leonard chose not. He wore the shirt but didn't kneel.
Right. Pop didn't kneel.
Jonathan. Yeah, and so for me, I'm past anybody on that side kneeling. Eric Reed, Colin Kaepernick, Kenny Stills did it, and it took courage because they were out there on the island, and they knew it could be consequences for their actions. Now,
and there was consequences. For the actions.
It was consequences for the actions. Now, it's like, hold on. It's like we had this little private talk. Hey, y'all, let's all kneel together. They can't get mad at us all. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a safe space now. You know what I mean? Like, we throwing up fists and all that. Like, why weren't you doing that 4 years ago? Because in the NBA, all those players individually, they have more power than in the NFL players. So these top players in the NBA, they weren't gonna get blackballed. You know, so why y'all didn't have that courage 4 years ago? And I get it. It takes everybody a little longer, but at the same time, like I said, it's safe. With Jonathan Isaac, I was very disturbed, and I reached out to a couple preachers before I commented on the matter. But you talk about God, you talk about Jesus and all of these things. Jesus died in police custody.
Hey, amen.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
that's real.
And so for you to sit there and say you're gonna sit there and kind of, you know, toe the line, like, it's a slap in the face to Breonna Taylor's family. To like it's one thing, right? It's one thing if I say, as a man, we're all men, we've all sinned. It's one thing for me to sin and commit a sin and ask God for forgiveness, right? Police brutality is not a sin. It's something that's planned. It's something that's targeted every single day. So this ain't an accident. Oh, God, my bad. This is something that they're purposely looking out to go out and do. And for him to not be educated enough to see that is very disturbing.
I mean, and, you know, for me, my thing is when people, you know, they bandy about the Christian stuff, and I happen to go to, you know, Catholic school for 12 years of my life. Two things I know for a fact is Jesus would say his mission was to serve the afflicted, the poor people of society. And that's exactly who police officers attack. It's not rich people. It's not like you're never going to get your head bust in Brentwood or Beverly Hills. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Like, they're not going to pull up in front of your house over there and kick your ass. It's poor people who are being targeted and marginalized and treated this way, right? Like that's who the police go after. So this idea that you would kick some Jesus knowledge to me, And I know for a fact that poor people, and a lot of people, black people don't want to hear this, but poor white people get pretty jammed up by the cops too. It just happens that we're disproportionately poor because America is racist as fuck. But like, I know for a fact that, this police brutality is freaking targeted at poor people. And if Jesus stood for one thing, it was the protection of poor people. So I don't get the Christian thing at all. I kind of just, that thing got punted. I punted that thing like.
That was a shield. It was just a shield to distract from his real feelings on the conversation. Like I can't remember exactly what scripture it was, but it was like 99 sheep were following Jesus and one had gotten away and he was going to get
he was led astray.
He said, why? And he said, if I don't get all of them, then none of it matters. And to me, that's the definition of quote unquote Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? All lives can't matter unless Black lives matter. Right. But you can't say that to people who are not interested in having a good faith conversation. We have a lot of bad faith actors in society, in politics, in media who don't want to talk about the topic at hand that everybody knows we're talking about. Like intellectually, people are smart enough to understand exactly what people are talking about when they say Black Lives Matter. Doesn't mean better or worse. It means we want to be treated equally as it's supposed to be. Not necessarily intended by the Constitution, because the Constitution states something completely different, but what this country aims to be or purports itself to be, that's what people are fighting for. And for Jonathan Isaac, all of 22 years old, I give him a little bit of grace because he's 22 and he hasn't lived yet. Who knows where he got his ideology from, right? You got a lot of people in your ear. That was probably rehearsed. That was around the first game. So I'm thinking that was something that had been talked about, with his circle, with his people before. And he probably believed that once he said God and everything else, that was going to get people to back off and not get follow-up questions. And when the follow-up questions came, he had no answer. So he looked silly. He looked uneducated. And hopefully with this time, that he's going to be sitting down, hopefully he'll be able to understand that if nothing else, his own Black life deserves a little bit better than the response he gave it.
Yeah. Hey, before you get started, and with Myers Leonard, because I wanted to address both of them on social media. So Myers Leonard is the same as like Drew Brees. It's like, all right, you say Black Lives Matter, but your reasoning, and you don't have to take a knee, but your reasoning for not taking the knee is because you want to show respect to the troops. Do you not think that Black and brown people fight for this country every single day?
Right.
You know what I mean? So like that can't be your reasoning at this point in the game. We've talked about it too many times. So,
and the military doesn't own the flag. Like, since when did the flag become proxy for the military? Like, when did we decide that they own the flag and everything is related to the flag? Again, I feel like that's a diversionary tactic. It's not as disingenuous. Some people do believe that the military owns the flag, but they don't own the flag. And if they do, then we really need to be having a completely different discussion.
Yeah. Kenny, I want to ask you a question about while you're going through all this in Louisville. I know you were committed, but what were some of the worries that you had going in?
My only worry was if they were to get violent, and just they being the police, if they were to get violent, what could happen? Knowing that we were all there willing to give our lives for the cause, for Breonna, to bring more light to this case. And so that was literally my only worries. All right, well, if today is the last day, that's it.
You were ready.
It's like I didn't call my parents and let them know. I didn't, I had my friends knew. A couple of my friends, my closest friends knew. One of my friends that was there, she didn't get arrested, so she took all of our stuff, and so she could help us get out. But yeah, my literal only fear was like, all right, well, if today's the last day, then that's it.
Yeah, that's why you were ready for that.
Yeah,
you were.
All of us were.
Did you put Vaseline on your face like the shorties in my neighborhood used to before a fight? I don't know why. What was the reasoning behind that? Is that because, like, boxers did it? Like,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, but y'all remember that, right? Like, before a fight, people would just smear all kinds of Vaseline on their face.
Gina did that on the episode of Martin when she was about to fight Martin's teacher. Y'all remember that?
Right.
That's the epitome of light-skinned energy.
Right. We gotta do what we gotta do, man.
No Vaseline, but we were ready, 100%.
Irv, I'm just curious too. Like, does fear ever factor in to both of you guys? Does fear ever factor in when you're getting arrested? Like, you know, it's peaceful and everything else, and someone will have to be really, really stupid to harm you guys with everything that's around. But somebody will have to be really, really stupid to harm the people that they've harmed over the course of the last, 400 years, and especially in the camera phone era. So did fear ever factor into the equation that I'm not Irv Roland, I'm not Kenny Stills, I'm just the guy that's getting arrested right now by the state?
Yeah, so my first thought with that is, like Kenny said, I just feel like God is going to handle it, right? Whatever God has for me is for me, right? So, like Kenny said, I went into the situation just feeling like, look, if we're supposed to die today, then God already had this mapped out. There's nothing that I could do to change that. You know what I'm saying? Like, God has my steps ordered already. So then, I had people after the fact, oh man, why y'all couldn't just whatever. And I'm like, me being scary in the house isn't going to change my faith, right? Breonna Taylor was safely in her home when they killed her. So me being in my house, being scared, doesn't ensure my safety. You know what I mean? So I just feel like I got to be frontline, and, God is just going to handle the rest, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're fearful, but like you said, I trust in the plan and whatever that plan is, and I know that I have the opportunity to go out there, and I've got the resources to be there. Like, I want to show up and do my best, because I can't do something that I wouldn't. I can't do something, I can't do something and then try to ask people to do something that I wouldn't do, basically. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and I can't ask other people to do it if I'm not gonna do it myself.
Well, man, I know we got to talk about serious stuff because it's a serious time, but I do want to ask about the season.
Here we go.
I'm just sorry. What do you want me to do? We got an NFL guy here. You seen the NBA players were able to pretty quickly get a deal done with the owners of the NBA, and I talked to Dominique about this, somebody who worked in both unions, Dominique Foxworth of the Undefeated, and he was like, there's a lot of power concentrated at the top of the Players Association. So it's essentially, if LeBron and Chris Paul and KD and all the prominent guys in the NBA essentially say, yo, this is what we're going to do, they've been empowered by their membership to go ahead and get deals done. There's power concentrated. I don't know that that's the case in the football union whatsoever. So what do you think? How optimistic are you about the season? Do you feel confident? Do you feel safe? What's your thoughts right now with an NFL season happening this fall?
I mean, I'm a realist for the most part. So I look at what's happened with the other leagues, baseball, and you see, they're not necessarily in a bubble. We're not going to be in a bubble. So I think it'll be difficult for us to have a full season with the virus being out there and the way that it spreads. But I mean, it's one of those things that I guess we're going to have to see. I definitely considered opting out. I was, up until the last minute, making that decision. And honestly, if there wasn't a deadline, a couple of hours after the deadline, I was like feeling more confident. Like, okay, I can make this decision, to sit out the season and really, protect myself, protect my family, and be able to really focus on the movement. But I don't, we'll see how things go. I'm really proud of the college football players for standing up for themselves, man. I trying to get together and put together their own players association and protect themselves and protect some of the other smaller schools or schools that didn't have any type of COVID like regulations. So I'm really proud of the young guys. And I mean, it just, we have terrible leadership right now, from the top, the person running the country, all the way to his friends and the people that are, the leaders of all of sports and in government, all the way around. And so this thing really could have been nipped in the bud, like other countries were doing, and we chose not to. And so now we're in a situation where people are dying and they want to be entertained. So athletes are going to be out there, and I mean, it kind of is what it is, like the president said.
Wow. Irv, real quick, one more time, let the people know, for those players that are trying to get in contact with you, they want to come out, get some work in, but also do some good. What are the plans again?
Yeah, so August 15th and 16th, we'll be in Louisville, Kentucky. They can contact me, 504-234-8686. We're going to feed 2,000 families. We're going to do some back-to-school giveaways and stuff like that. Really try to uplift the community, quick little basketball clinic. And if they want to work out, we got stuff available for that as well.
So I'm going to end with this. I'm going to ask everybody on the call this question. Realistically speaking, 12 months from now, what would be a realistic, optimistic appraisal of where the country is going to be? Waz, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go Irv, then Kenny, then Vinny.
I mean, for me, a win in all of, like, though I understand the rhetoric of, or the concept of a defund the police or extinguish the police, or whatever we're calling it, abolish the police. While I understand that, for me, and maybe I'm not radical enough or whatever, to me, a win is just a broad shift amongst the white people in this country as far as their conception, how they view the police. I think what you've seen over the last 4 months with people, just the willingness for leagues and brands to come out and just say Black Lives Matter, it's a repudiation of the concept that the cops are infallible, that the cops can never do wrong, that the cops are justified in every single fucking thing that they do. I think if we continue in that direction, because let's face it, it's white people who the approval rating of police is basically like 99%. I think if we continue in a direction where our white citizens start to understand that the cops kind of fuck up all the time, way too much, and we need to implement mechanisms to stop that, then we won. If we're continuing to move in that direction, maybe I'm cynical or whatever. I just find it hard to believe that overnight that white people don't want cops around. But I think if we're obviously moving in that direction, even from what Irv and Kenny is saying today about what it was like in Louisville, to be essentially surrounded by white people for an issue that mainly affects the Black community over there, which I think is encouraging. There's a way to look at it and say there's not enough Black people there, but these things used to just be only Black people. So it's dope to see that other citizens who don't have a direct involvement in the consequences of that stuff are starting to see that, yo, man, this shit is not right. We want to see something else happen. So I'm encouraged by that. If we still see things moving in that direction, I'll be encouraged by it.
Irv?
Yeah, so, Kyrie talked about it a little bit. Like, I wasn't big on guys going back to play sports. I think a lot of times sports is a distraction. And I think with the movement, we had a lot of momentum. And it's still been kind of carried on a little bit. Guys are trying somewhat to use their voices in the bubble and whatnot. The women, shout out to all the girls in the WNBA. They go so hard, man. And I appreciate the heck out of them. But they've been doing this for years. But I just hope that, people continue to try to educate themselves on these issues, and we don't lose our momentum, with things kind of, trickling back to normalcy, kids going to school, more sports. I hope people try to educate themselves and we don't lose our momentum. I know Kenny will talk about it. I hope we can move in the direction of reparations. I hope we can move into, better training for our police officers. I think that's very huge. It makes no sense that my barber has to go to get educated longer than a police officer to get in uniform. So I hope that's where we are a year from now.
Kenny.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it real G with y'all, that like my optimism for the next year isn't very high. But the things that I'm focusing on is the topic of reparations, the conversation around reparations. I've worked on something personally, for myself that I want to present, and I've looked at what other people that have been working on the topic of reparations, for a while, and the things that they're doing. So really just trying to do my best to get the ball rolling and keep that thing rolling and educate people and, do something around the conversation of reparations. And then, like you were talking about, taking the funds that we have been investing into our police and just reinvesting them into our communities. If we can do that all across our country or in places that, we have these instances of police violence and where, our police aren't protecting and serving our community, to be able to take the money that we're investing into them, because we've been investing that money into them for so long and it's a bad investment. I mean, anywhere else, in this country of capitalism, if it's a bad investment, we would have pulled our money up out of there a long time ago. So to be able to just switch our mindset and reimagine justice and reimagine community policing and be able to take those funds and to, put them into our community, I think, if we can do that over the next year, we'll see a lot of change and a lot less deaths, by the hands of our law enforcement.
Vinny.
Well, as a journalist, I'm naturally more cynical and skeptical probably than the average human being. But in the context of this, and we are sports guys, one of my favorite coaches is Hubie Brown. And he was taking, I think, a job with the Memphis Grizzlies, and they asked him what his philosophy was about turning around a losing franchise. And he says, every night after a loss, I hurt. But if I get you to hurt like I hurt, then we're going somewhere. And if you put that in the context of black and white, or if you put that in the context of black people with everybody else, if everybody else hurts like we hurt when something goes wrong, then that's the first step to being able to figure something out. I do believe that we are kind of in this sort of moment of reckoning. We're in a moment of self-evaluation. We're in a moment where we have to reevaluate all the things that we consider to be normal. And I remember MLK reading something on MLK. It wasn't a letter from a Birmingham jail, but he said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice, which basically says, look, it's going to take a long time and baby steps to get things to where we want to get it to. And I know we want to speed things up as fast as possible. And I know we're going to go through some protest fatigue. And I think to some degree, that's where we're at right now, with some level of protest fatigue, where you want to know that people are truly listening and paying attention, and the energy and the passion is still there. I'm hoping that a year from now, that when the Black Lives Matter signs don't come up for the leagues because it's not, trendy or in vogue, that the energy is still there, that the accountability is still there. And if that's still there, then hopefully we can move towards some of these other tangible goals that have been up for the better part of 400 years.
Man, what great answers all around. Let's end it on this. Let's end it on a positive note, because before we started recording, Kenny, you brought something up that I never knew. That the winner of the first Kentucky Derby ever, the jockey, was actually a black man. And that before Reconstruction, it was actually the Kentucky Derby had a lot of black presence in it. So educate us all a little bit more about that.
You want to take it, Irv?
Yeah, man. So back in the day, blacks, we were like horse jockeys, like that's what we did. It was like basketball now. The majority of it was black men. And so basically what they did, they forced us out through, scare tactics. Some guys were harmed, a lot of blackballing. And then Reconstruction happened and we were out of there. And then all of that stuff, just like everything else in this country, kind of got swept under the rug and nobody knows about it. You know what I mean? Here we are in 2020. Right. Nobody knows, for us now in 2020, we think of, horse racing and stuff like that. We only think of small white men. You know what I mean? But we ran this sport, and it's just like everything else. They try to brush it under the rug, and we don't know our history.
Erase it. They don't brush it under the rug. They try to erase it. They try to make sure that we don't even find it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I learned about that. I'm glad I learned a lot today. Thanks a lot to our guests. Thank you, Kenny Stills. Thank you, Irv Roland. Thank you, Vincent Goodwill, for Big Waz. I'm Amin Elhassan. Shout out to Rob Lopez, our producer, and we'll talk to y'all next time.